Hi, it is Pete Cohen, and welcome to the first ever episode of Pete and Patty's Powerful Particulars podcast. On today's show, the meaning of life. This is it, Patty. This is it. This is Pete and Patty's Powerful Particulars.
Oh my
podcast.
gosh, we're here. It's happening.
Can you say it, please? Can you say it? Say it quickly.
Pete and Patty's powerful powdering of the nose. Yeah.
Well,
Pete and Patty's powerful participles.
That's what we're here.
Particulars.
Particulars. We are here today. This is the first podcast, and I'm excited. I'm fired up. And I thought we'd start off with a very kind of, a fluffy, kind of easy to answer, the meaning of life.
I think so too, because, when you start off with the foundation of all things, and what is it, the 90th percentile of what people ask in the universe?
Apparently at the moment, it's the 99th most popular question asked on Google. Don't ask me what number one is. What is the meaning of life? And in fact, check this out. I've got to show you something right here, right now, because I've got another friend with me here. Hey, Siri, what is the meaning of life?
It's nothing Nietzsche couldn't teach you.
It's nothing Nietzsche couldn't teach you. But check this out. If I ask him again, what's the meaning of life?
Trying to be nice to people, avoid eating fat, read a good book every now and then, get some walking in, and try to live together in peace and harmony with people of all creeds and nations.
I love that.
I love that. I mean, listen,
you got that right. You got that right.
Well, in research for the show, Patty, I asked Siri, and he kept telling me a different answer. He gave me 10 different answers, and I was just so confused at the end because I want to know what the meaning of life is. And I know you know, so please tell us, because we're all waiting right here to hear.
Well, I just want you to know that in research for the show, I watched Monty Python, What is the Meaning of Life? And one of the things that I was fascinated by was the opening lyrics of that song that he does in that, which is life where we make up the rules while we're searching for something to say? I think that's really what it's all about. Or are we a spiraling coil of self-replicating DNA?
Well, listen.
Are you?
Well, we've opened up Pandora's box. I was actually I do like that, by the way, and I have seen that film, The Meaning of Life. I love that bit where the guy who's eating just loads and loads and loads and loads of food. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. At the end, the guy, John Cleese, gives him a wafer thin mint, and the guy goes, I don't want it, and he goes, oh, just a little wafer thin. This conversation goes on for a bit, and then eventually the bloke just explodes.
But I love the idea of talking about why we're here. Like in that movie, they're talking about birth, growing up, middle age, organ transplants was part of it. And so, but what is really, Pete, the meaning of life? When you think about it, when you're thinking about it inside, what's the meaning of life? Is it about love? Is it about harmony?
Well, it's such a fascinating topic. It's something that, here we go. Now
Not eating too much fat?
Well, maybe. Because when we talk about it, we can talk about it using humor. And that's obviously what, Monty Python do. In fact, when I first started looking at the show and talking about it, the first thing I heard in my head was, always look on the bright side of life, which is the song from The Life of Brian. Always look on the bright side of life. And I think there's people all over the world right now that are probably trying to work out what the meaning of life actually is. I suppose for me, I think the meaning of life is the meaning that you actually give it yourself, right?
Right, that you create for it. And so one of the other things that was in that movie and in that song was that millions of people are living under the sad veil of fear. And I thought that's what's true in the world today with everything that's happening. It's hard if you're a young person growing up trying to sort through what's reality from what's bullshit and find that piece, that nugget that you can, hang your hat on and know this is what I'm about. This is what the world's about. This is what I'm supposed to do here. I think it's
Well,
very confusing, don't you?
I think it is very confusing. And if you think about it, as human beings, we are a little bit odd. And I think we are extremely different.
Just you, Pete,
Oh,
not
well,
everybody
obviously
else.
I know that. I'm extremely odd. I think the human race is a little odd, and we're a bit different from every other animal out there because I know you have dogs. I've got a cat, and I often think to myself, I wonder what the meaning of life is to this cat or to this dog. And one of the things that you said that was in the film, the meaning of life, is from a scientific, because I think we could all agree and disagree on what we think the meaning of life is, but in terms of what science would say the meaning of life is, the meaning of life is to evolve. The fact that once upon a time there was something that lived and it wanted to carry on living, but it couldn't, but it found a way for it to mutate or for it to kind of take an essence of itself to become
and expand.
And to survive. And maybe the meaning of life is to survive. But
well, that's a pretty dull existence if all you're doing is trying to survive. I mean, really think about it. Then you're just at Maslow's law, right? And so where's the joy in that, right?
Yeah.
So part of it is, I think, understanding that it's not just about, I don't know. I mean, maybe it is just about survival. But if so, how dull?
I think there are obviously lots of people all over the world right now who are just trying to survive by getting food on the table.
For sure. No doubt.
How many millions of people are there all over the world that have that? As Maslow said, they have their basic needs met, but they're still kind of struggling. I think when we look at the meaning,
I think those are the people that I was talking about. I wasn't talking about the people who are actually struggling to survive, but I'm talking about the people who really are just living their life and getting up every day, and then they have the same cup of coffee, and they go to the same job, and then they do the same sort of routine. To me, then I wonder, for them, what is the meaning of life? I mean, what do they think about at night?
I suppose if you asked, 1,000 people what they thought the meaning of life is, what do you think some of those answers might
Probably
be?
get 1,000 different answers, right?
Yeah.
But, I was thinking about what Einstein said, right? Which he talked about it as, he thought the meaning of life was about religion. Science without religion is just ridiculous. But religion without science is not looking at the bigger picture, right?
Well, my grandma always said, don't talk about sex, money, politics, or religion. I'm not saying we shouldn't, obviously. My grandma's not here, and I'm sure now she wouldn't mind as much. And if Einstein was here, I always think if Einstein was here right now, would he still have the same opinions about? I think what I find so fascinating, Patti, is when people tell you what the meaning of life is, as if they're telling you what it is. And I remember reading in Think and Grow Rich many years ago that Napoleon Hill, the author, said, you should never give advice to anyone unless they ask.
Exactly.
And I think there's so many people that will tell people what we are here to do and what the meaning,
or what the point is,
and
of anything that you're doing.
Say that again.
They'll tell you the point of anything that you're doing, the reason that you're doing it. Instead of, I think part of it is that it's not a question, right?
Yeah.
So when you're asking someone, what's the meaning of life? You're asking them to tell their perspective about it instead of telling them your perspective about it.
Yeah.
So, but I'm curious, Pete, what is your perspective about it?
That's it's a good question.
Like Einstein said it was about religion, but I'm thinking about the time frame in which he lived. That was one perspective he was holding. And I'm wondering, who was he, reflecting in that? Was it his true self that he was reflecting? Or was it what he thought other people needed to hear in order to get validation?
Well, I think as a child, the meaning of life for me was definitely all I wanted to do was to play. I mean, that's what most of us want to do. And I think that's what most animals want something that animals do. So to me, a meaning, I think one of the things I've worked out is I've spent way too much of my life thinking in a way that stops me. Do you want me to get that? Maybe let's
No,
ask them.
I think that's good.
You should ask them, whoever that was, what is the meaning of life? Why don't I just phone up someone? We should phone up people randomly and just say, what is the meaning of life? In fact, I might even do that later on Facebook.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think it'd be good to find out from other people what they think, because I'd be curious of those 1,000 people we asked what they would say about the meaning of life.
I think when you ask me what the meaning of life is, I mean, look, I'm a coach, right? So I often ask the questions. And then sometimes when someone asks me a question like that, I almost want to deflect it away from myself because of my own kind of insecurities, if you like. But I think the other part of it is
You're not insecure, are you?
Oh, come on, we're all insecure.
I know. But Pete, you're a coach, right?
Yeah, but okay.
So don't you want to put on your armor for that? Don't you have to put on your armor?
Well, now we go to potentially down. It's like opening Pandora's box with all of this, because the whole vulnerability piece comes into play here. When you start looking at the meaning of life, maybe is to be whoever you choose to be. But I think, like you said, we're often quite frightened, right? Let me go back, and then I want to push it back on you, if that's okay, in terms of what is the meaning of life for you. I think that the meaning of life is the meaning that you choose to give your life. And that's an individual thing. It seems, from my experience, that the people who are happiest amongst us are the ones who are most alive when they're doing things for other people, where they're connected, they're making a difference to other people's lives. But what's the meaning of your life, Patti?
I think the meaning of life for me is to serve life. That's the meaning. And that when I feel the most engaged when I'm helping somebody else in some way. Yeah. And so, of course, I spend time reflecting and thinking about myself and, worrying about this and that. But I think when I'm being in the world and experiencing it as it is without trying to change anything that's happening around me, then I feel like I'm in the flow. And when I'm in the flow, then I understand the meaning of life, because it doesn't matter, right? I'm not in my mind thinking a question about what the meaning of life is. I'm in an experience, experiencing it fully. And that to me is the place of, I was going to say the place of honor. Like when you realize, oh my God, I'm alive in this world. Like, I think people take for granted the fact that you're alive even. Yeah. It's a gift to be alive, right? And so if you can turn it around and see it in that way, no matter what's happening to you, and find out what is for me the way to express myself and to share who I am, that's what I mean by service, share who I am, to engage others to step into their fullest self, then I'm in the meaning of life, right? Then I become the meaning of life.
It's very powerful. And I'll be really excited to see everyone who listens to this, for everyone to share what the meaning of their life is. And who knows, out of this podcast, there will be people, I'm sure, that start to question and maybe start to solidify a meaning which helps them get up every single day and embrace what life gives us. If we go back to what science says, I think what science says is almost unequivocal about the reason we're here is that once upon a time there was a thing that found its way to carry on its life by creating another life.
Growth theory, right?
Growth, yeah. So, you've heard me talk about the guy that won the Nobel Prize in 1937, Hungarian, this theory of syntropy, that every living cell lives for one reason, to express itself fully. But I want to ask you, now, Patti, you don't have kids, right? I don't have kids. Right?
No.
So whether we are still, it's not going to happen, right? It could. I'm not going to have children. I'm not actually capable. I mean, I'm
you
not
can't
a woman.
Have children. I know you might want to, Pete, but that's not going to happen in this lifetime for you. Not while I'm alive. Not yet. No. So anyway,
but the fact
we'll see how fast science catches up to that.
Well, listen, you never know. The way things are changing right now, I think anything is possible. But my
I don't think that will be, though. You can hold that
I can
thought, though,
picture
if
it.
you want to. Anyway, yes. So keep going.
So,
Right? We
well,
don't
actually,
have
I'm remembering
children.
that film Twins when Arnold Schwarzenegger he was pregnant. But anyway,
Yes, of course.
but he's Mr. Universe, so he can do
Anything can
anything.
happen with him. And he had something to say about it, too. His whole thing about the meaning of life was about conquering.
Yeah.
That's what Arnold Schwarzenegger said. I'm like, conquering? Okay,
Mhm.
well, that's interesting. That's an old mentality, really.
Well,
But that's a judgment on my part. Sorry,
yeah, but
Arnie.
hang on a second. I think that, one of the things I remember being told from my coach many years ago, he said, look, the earth is female, Mother Earth, and
Yes.
men feel the need to conquer. And maybe they do feel the need to conquer, but is conquering actually make people genuinely happy? And anyway, that's
I
the
don't
point
know.
I was trying
That's
to make.
neither here nor there. But get back to your point.
So the point I was making is that because you're not able to have children, do you still feel that you are here to pass something on? Because
Of
I think the
course.
meaning of my life, or the meaning I give it, I'm not telling everyone here, but I feel
That it should be their meaning. You're just telling it to yourself.
exactly. So the great things my parents have shared with me, what other people have shared with me who aren't alive anymore, some of them are still alive, that I almost feel that it is my responsibility to pass on to others what has been passed on to me. I don't know what you think about that, but that's part
Well,
of the meaning of my life.
and I think that if I was highly religious in some religions, I would believe that the meaning of life was to procreate, right? To
Yeah.
further the species. And I think that the misconception is that everybody has to understand or participate in the meaning of life in the same way. Because that's the beauty of the world, is there's so much diversity. Like you're saying, meaning of life for you is to further others, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah,
Some format of that,
yes.
further others. And mine is to share whatever, help people understand how to share their gifts, right? And so, but I could tell you that if I asked my neighbor the meaning of life, he might say to me, I don't know. Or the other.
Can you go and ask him?
I'm going to ask him for sure, because I got to know what he's going to say. First off, he's going to give me this look like, what are you asking me that question for, strange woman that lives next door to me? You're, 10 years younger than me. I don't know what you're doing over there in your place. You got microphones and people coming and going, and then pictures. So, I think that for his perspective is going to be very different than my neighbor on the other side, who was a social worker. Right. So her opinion might have a whole different flavor to it. The guy across the street who just has baby, all of them in my hood, they have their own perspective on it. And we have to, the thing that's tough about the world right now is it doesn't feel like there's much room for people to have their own opinion about anything.
Yeah.
And so that to me is, how can we create the space for that dialogue to occur? So if you're listening to the podcast and you've got an opinion about the meaning of life, you've got to send us your opinion about it so that we get a whole gamut across.
Well, you know what I'm going to do, right? In as we're recording this, obviously live. How else would we be recording?
Are you going to put something on
I'm
Facebook?
actually going to put something out here, right?
I knew it. I knew you would, because that's Pete Cohen. He's an activator, right? And so, if you want something done, you ask Pete, and then he'll get everything going.
Okay,
and
you ready for this? I'm going to put this
ready.
On Facebook. What is the meaning of life? ? Okay, I've just posted that.
It's going out. I love it. Now, speaking of the meaning of life, so, when I was an actor, I performed on this little tiny stage, the Valencia Rose in San Francisco. It actually, in San Francisco, on Valencia Street. And it was the stage where Whoopi Goldberg had just performed the night before. And I was like so thrilled that I was standing on the same stage. But here, Whoopi Goldberg, this is what she said about it, that the meaning of life is to throw out little torches to lead people through the dark.
Yeah, I like that. Can you say that once more?
To throw out little torches to lead people through the dark.
Yeah. Well, that to me brings out the whole thing about leadership, right? That to be a leader so that others can follow and become leaders in their own right. Because we all need help, right? We all need. This is one of the things I still find fascinating through my research about rejection. So we all want to kind of fit in because we have to fit into groups. That's why we're alive today.
Right.
And rejection is something that many people are frightened of feeling.
Yes.
Rejection physically hurts because
Yeah.
when we were living in groups in the wild, if you felt rejection, that was a sign of you do something because you don't want to be kicked out. If you kick out, you're going to die.
That's right.
What seems to happen is that we all kind of conform to a way of thinking that is like everybody else that was never really ours in the first place.
Right.
And I think people struggle because they're struggling to be, I mean, what is a midlife crisis? I don't really know what one of those is, but people often talk, why does anyone have a midlife crisis? Is it because they wake up and think, what is the meaning of life? Because I feel really unfulfilled.
Well, yeah, or they feel like that they've been going down this treadmill and they're kind of a rat in a Skinner box. They're just pressing the lever and then they go get the pellet and then they go run around and they go through the little tube and then get another pellet. So I think, a midlife crisis really is where you realize I don't really know what I'm doing here. Like what I thought was important is no longer important to me. And I think, honestly, my social media person is in her late 20s, mid 20s, and she was talking about having a 20s crisis, that where she feels like people of her generation are having a similar thing to what a midlife crisis is, wondering like what should they be doing and who should they be in the world. So I wonder if, in a way, what we do is we suppress this need to understand the universe. We suppress it. And then all of a sudden, it's like a little volcano underneath it, like it erupts. And then if you suppress it too far, if you're not always asking yourself the question, like, what am I doing? What's my purpose? Why am I here? Then eventually it's going to blow up on you, don't you think?
I think so. I think that's where a lot of people end up with some serious mental health challenges. I mean, I think in 2012, what it was estimated that 800,000 people took their own lives. You know, there's so many people that are struggling. Why are they struggling? What is it that is actually going on? Because I know, Patti, one of the things that you're into, which is what I'm into, is helping people enjoy life, feel good about who they are. Yet there's probably never been so many opportunities for us to create an amazing life and be happy with so much freedom. Yet there's so much sadness and depression and worry. And I don't know, why is that?
Well, I think that's part of the way that we're wired, honestly. You know, it's part of our wiring is to protect ourselves, right? So we protect ourselves, and the amygdala's job is really to put that screen down so that you like are always on guard and you don't realize you need to turn that down. And so, and I believe that worry is a habit. It's something that we do to make ourselves, I was going to say, feel important.
Yeah.
But we give ourselves value by worrying, or you know, when you are with somebody and you're like, oh my God, I've been working so hard, I just can't take it anymore. You know, it's honestly you in the bragatorium telling people how great you are, that you have so much work, that you're working so hard, right? So to me, I think that we do a lot of things out here to keep ourselves from feeling how we really feel. And the truth is, when you think about it, I mean, you're just a little speck in the universe. Go outside and look at the stars and you see how tiny and minuscule you are. And you wonder, what's the point of my life?
Yeah.
You don't see yourself as part of the cosmic whole, which honestly, I think that's part of the meaning of life, is finding a way to connect to the cosmic whole and take your place in it.
I think that has something magical around people having something to believe in. I have a very good friend, and he's recently become very religious, and he wasn't before. And I see him in a different light. I see him in a light where he seems to be happier than he has ever been. And he talks about his religion, and he talks about what God and Jesus is doing for him. And I must
so he
admit,
got that place. He feels like he found his place within his tribe. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very what's the word? It's captivating. It's almost quite attractive that you're seeing someone. Wow, you're so happy. Why are you so happy? What is it? Is it Jesus? Is it God? I mean, he would probably say that it was. I'm sure he would.
Yeah.
Whereas I
Where
have.
we, yes. What would you say?
Well, this is the kind of part of the elephant in the room, isn't it? When you start talking about this stuff,
I
because
know, but it's tricky here because I think that what's true is it's not a one size fits all universe, right?
Mm.
So for some people, Jesus and Christ and the world and God, for other people, nature and connection, for other people, nothing. That's their whole perspective. And
Well,
there's nothing wrong with any of those,
well, I
right?
know in your DNA you're 5% Jewish, apparently, right? Well, I think I'm more than 5%. I mean, I was, I was born as a Jew. I actually went to a Catholic school, believe it or not, but I was bar mitzvahed at the age of 13. And obviously, Jews are brought up to not think that Jesus is the Son of God. But I'm not going to go down that road. But
Okay, good. Because I don't know if I could take it right now. It's a little too early in the day for that.
But okay, but let me share a story with you that really had a massive impact on me. I remember giving a talk once to a whole load of fitness professionals, and I was trying to make the point about something that is true. So I said, tell me something that is 100% true that you can't argue with it. It's the truth. So someone said, we're made up of mostly water. I said to everyone, is that true? And then I said, tell me something else. So someone said, the earth moves around the sun.
The
Is
sun.
that true? Even though some people, sorry, the other way around. Some people would argue with that, but I would say that was true. And then someone said, Jesus is the Son of God. And then I said, is that true to everyone? And some people in the room said no. So then I turned to the person that said it and said, are you telling all of these people that they are wrong? And he said, yes. And I said, you know what, in life, it's great when you can respect the differences of people and just respect the fact that you don't have the same beliefs as everybody else.
That's right.
Carried on talking. And then he stopped me and said that what I had just said was blaspheming. And he could prove that Jesus was the Son of God. So then he really got my attention because I was going,
boy, I bet.
okay, well, brilliant.
Whoa.
How can
really
how?
now you're in the corner? You're in the box.
Yeah.
How'd you get out of that box?
He said, well, it's in the Bible. So then I said to everyone in the room, does everyone here believe that everything in the Bible is true?
True.
And some people said yes, and some people said no. So then I turned to the guy and said, are you telling everyone in this room that they are wrong? And he said, yes, they are wrong. And once again, I said, look, can we respect the differences?
I'm glad that guy is not my boss right now. I just want you to know.
Well,
whoa.
He was actually
that's
asked
very rigid thinking, right?
Well,
but that's true belief in something. So, those of you that are Christian listening here, I'm sure this is going to get your hackles up, right? For us talking about this, or maybe not. Maybe you'll agree at head nod. But so, Pete, how did you handle the situation then?
Well, he was actually asked to leave the room.
Oh, wow.
And then he came up to me afterwards and he apologized. And I said, hey, look, there's no need to apologize. It's absolutely fine. He said, but you need to understand Jesus is the Son of God. And I wasn't going to start saying to him, look, I'm sorry.
Then you're against, you're right, I'm wrong, right? No. Yeah, when you get into that, forget it. And nothing's going to happen.
I think that I'm excited about creating environments for people to discover what makes them come alive and what gives their life meaning without telling them. And I'm a bit of a red personality. I'm a little kind of controlling. I want to control the situation, but I realize I can't make this up for people. People have to, they
have to discover it themselves.
You think so?
I think that's I think, well, the interesting thing is, I think this is true about religion in general. You can't tell people what to do. You can't tell people what's truth. People have to discover and uncover truth for themselves. Just like this conversation we're having about the meaning of life. It's up to us to discover that. You've got to peel back the lid of the box, dive in there, get all dirty, mess around in there, and find out what's truth. You've got to go inside and do whatever spiritual practice if you want to, or be with nature, whatever, to find your truth. Because when you have your own truth, then it's so much more powerful than when just taking on what somebody's telling you. And I think that's true across the board in business and coaching and food. And, if you listen to everybody right now, you'd be in a world of mess, honestly, because everyone seems to have a lot of opinion. And I think there's got to be room for dialogue.
I think there has to be, right? And just think of the amount of times I've just reflecting on myself in my own head, how many times I've said in this podcast, I think, because we can
said that. I wrote it down and it's been 21. So whatever.
Let's go to Facebook and see if anyone's actually.
All right. I'm sure they did. I'm sure someone answered the meaning of life.
To reveal what people are saying here. Just hold your horses.
I'm holding.
I don't know where that expression comes from.
Are we going to have to play the Jeopardy song?
Jeopardy music. Hang on a second. Come on. Okay, we've got 2 comments.
Here it is.
Someone says love and gratitude, and then someone has written MLM sales. I have no idea. Maybe that I don't know. That could be multi-level
marketing sales.
Okay, fair enough. Some people think the meaning of life is 42, by the way, because I'm sure someone will put that from a famous book called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yes, of course.
But Patti, I Googled the word life, and I was looking for the meaning of that word. And the meaning is capacity for growth, reproduction, functional activity, and continual change before death. And then I looked at the word meaning, and the word meaning comes out as existence, consciousness, happiness, purpose. And you can quite clearly see there are so many ideas around this: cultural, ideological, philosophical, scientific, theological, metaphysical. I mean, that whole metaphysics. I remember watching that film, What the Bleep, where they were talking about the fact that there is no such thing as time. And it's like I say, this might be the meaning of life, part 1.
I'm sure it is, Pete. And the thing that stood out for me from that big list was continual change before death. Yeah. And I love that. And I think that, we don't accept or embrace change enough. And so I'm hoping that in this podcast series that people will follow along to see how much change we're going to experience, even in how we do the podcast, so that you can come along on that ride with us. So if you were going to give somebody a tip for just this podcast today, Pete, what would be your tip about the meaning of life? What should people do? What do you want them to experience in this conversation?
I would love them to feel alive, and I would love them to feel like there are infinite possibilities about what they do now, what they do tomorrow. I would encourage them to go and have that conversation with other people and get excited about what they can do, with their life, because it ain't over yet. It's definitely not over for me. In fact, I remember meeting up recently with some guys I was at university with and asking them, we're reminiscing about all the great good old days. But then when I was asking about where we're going, I'm as excited about the next 50 years of my life as I have been about the first 50. So I would encourage people to get excited and to think big. What about you, Patti?
Well, I would just say this, is that ask yourself, what is the meaning of life for me? For me. And then ask people around you to see what, your sphere of influence and people that you interact with, what do they think about it? Just so that you get yourself some new perspectives on how people are viewing the world and build. For me, I need to build bridge, as if it wasn't a plural thing, bridge. I'm going to build bridge. And then to everybody that I come in contact with, so that I can, find a way that we can walk across that bridge together, meet in the center of that. That's my goal, really, with the whole meaning of life conversation.
Powerful. And let's also just talk about, just before we finish off, what is the purpose of Pete and Patti's Powerful Particulars podcast? What is it that, you just kind of touched on that in terms of your goal for this, but what is it that you want to happen as a result of these podcasts?
I just want people to be inspired to go and do things, to go out in the world and experiment with things that you haven't tried before and look at the particulars of life. Particulars are really the differentiators between things. They're the things that make you special. And so find the specialness, the uniqueness in yourself and in other people. That to me would be the optimum experience.
Yeah. Well, for me too, I love working with you. You and I have been working together for some time, and it's always fun and it's always exciting. But our goal is to inspire, millions of people around the world. And this is the first of many podcasts. And we would ask you to, if you're listening to this on iTunes, please make a comment. Please feel free to share it. If you're watching this on our Facebook page, just search on Facebook for Pete and Patti's Powerful Particulars podcast. And get involved in the debate. Let's go out there and change the world one person at a time. And I would love to know from everyone else, what has been your biggest takeaway? As you said, Patti, what would you like people? Well, you've already said it. What would we like? We want to know, what's your biggest takeaway? What is the meaning of your life? And we will see you for episode 2, which actually is called, I think, what did we call it? Something to do with love.
It has to do with love.
All you need is love. Is love
all you need is love.
That's what the Beatles said, and they were right, weren't they?
They were definitely right.
So thank you so much, everyone. Have a happy, beautiful
day. I'm Patti.
Day.
That's Pete.
I'm Pat. No, you're Pete. I'm Pete. You're Patti.
I'm Patti. You're Pete.
And this has been Pete and Patti's Powerful Particulars
podcast.
Take care. Much love.
Much love.